living rooms. This is part 3 of our 3-part weight loss journey series. Today, we're going to talk about, now that you've actually started your weight loss journey, how to continue successfully towards your goal. One of the biggest challenges is, of course, the motivation and the plateaus. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about how to stay on track with the weight loss journey, and what are actually some characteristics of long-term success. So I'm going to show you what the research shows, and then you can kind of relate that to your own behaviors and your own challenges. And then, how do we handle these weight loss plateaus? The first thing I'd like to say, and I don't mean to sound flippant about this, but actually weight loss is the easier part of the weight loss journey. It's actually maintaining it or actually getting to your goal. That's the hard part. And the reason for that is that there's so many interferences. There's the environmental interference, but there's also the biological interference between genetics and hormones and medications and illnesses, and all those things that kind of hinder the success. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but remember, the body is actually equipped to gain weight. That's what it wants to do. That's why we have so many more hormones that drive hunger rather than turn off hunger. So when you think of us as a biological, physiological organism, because that's what we are, we relate to the environment and we have thrifty genes. We just really can store fat and hang on to it. And it's just really difficult to let it go. The other thing is something called the set point theory. And the set point theory is a theory that says that you're genetically programmed to be a certain weight based on your genetics. And if you try to go below that weight, your body is going to constantly fight to get back to that original weight. And we even see that in patients that undergo very dramatic surgeries like bariatric surgery. And there was one theory that bariatric surgery reset this set point, but even patients with bariatric surgery struggle with weight regain as well. So it just goes to show that there's that biological pressure for us to get back to that original weight. So it's a buzzkill for sure. Research also shows that weight loss reaches its peak within the 6-month start of the treatment. And this I see all the time. Patients are motivated, they're losing weight, and then right around the 6-month mark, it fizzles. And either they're bouncing up and down, the 5 pounds up, the 5 pounds down, and it's very demotivating. And it could be that's the point where we reassess. Maybe the patient or the client is actually at the goal weight. Maybe the goal weight that they originally intended was unrealistic. So we have to go back and reset the goals. But sometimes they're not at their goal. They have more to lose, and yet they're struggling to get to that final trend. So the trend begins to reverse thereafter, and that's what's sad. 50% of patients return to their original weight after about 5 years. So this does indicate to a healthcare provider like me that a greater focus needs to be on long-term maintenance for sure. Now, how do we actually define successful weight loss? From the clinician's perspective, the way we define it is if you're losing 5 to 10 and even to 20% of your excess body weight and you're keeping that off within the year, that's a success. And the reason why we pick those strange percentages is that we know that 20% can actually help you resolve some of your weight related conditions. So we always go into this not just thinking, oh, yeah, okay, so you want to lose weight and look, nice in that dress. You're going to look nice in that dress anyway. But if you're wearing that nice dress, I want you to be in that nice dress without hypertension and without diabetes. So that's why we focus on that number. And it's a really great starting point for your goal. So if, what you need to think about is, all right, how much weight do I want to lose? And is that really about 5 to 20% of your excess body weight? Research also shows that 20% of individuals with intentional weight loss are successful at long-term weight loss. And that's good, but it's only 20%. So it doesn't mean I'm a bad dietitian or you're a bad client. It just means, again, that resourcefulness of the body. So, all right, I just had to put in a little funny. Now, the reason why I put this on here is like, do you weigh yourself every day? Do you weigh yourself once a week? Do you weigh yourself once a month? I have clients and patients that'll weigh themselves every day, and that they use it productively because it keeps them on track. If they see that it's bounced up a couple ounces or even a pound, they can kind of think about the day before. And maybe they're thinking, well, you know what, I might have had a salty meal. So that 1 pound really isn't a pound. That's just a lot of fluid shifts. Or sometimes the client will get on the scale and say, oh man, that really is 1 to 2 pounds. And I think I know why I ate that hot fudge sundae last night. And then you have other clients and patients of mine that'll say, oh my gosh, getting on the scale is a total buzzkill. And what it does is it demotivates them. So obviously, if you're using the scale in that sense, I would say, look, don't use the scale at all. Try to do other measurements, body measurements, clothing, things like that, pictures, because you want to be able to be objective, not emotional about the journey, which I know is not an easy thing. So, what we like to look at as clinicians is what are some predictors of successful weight loss? And this was kind of interesting. A predictor of weight loss maintenance was how long participants had successively maintained their weight loss. So, what we find is that if you're able to maintain your weight loss for about 2 years, that's really encouraging because that means you're actually going to reduce your risk of regaining that weight by about 50%. So again, very difficult to do because, again, at that 6 month mark and that 1 year mark, we're starting to regain weight. But if we can get to that 2 year mark, that's a good sign. The other thing that we see is that if we have lower levels of what's called disinhibition, what is that? This is just a fancy psychological term that means we have periodic binges, or maybe we're grazers or snackers. So you have to think about what your eating behavior is, and it's not easy to change an eating behavior. I think I told you guys this the last time. I do have a client that actually has to actually literally lock the refrigerator and cupboard and the pantry. He locks it. And he has to give his wife the key. Otherwise, he's going to go in there and he's got that urge to keep going in there, especially when he's stressed and when he's emotional. So, research is showing that if you can deal with those problems, maybe with the help of a psychologist that specializes in eating and overweight and things like that, they can give you other strategies to kind of break that chain. Because we're finding if you have fewer disinhibition episodes, you're more likely to maintain your weight. And that makes sense because the research also shows that when we oversnack or graze, those are the two things that are going to sabotage our weight loss goals. We also showed that participants, they were asked if they maintained the same diet regimen across the week or year, or if they tended to diet more strictly on weekdays, or do you have those cheat days? And what's really interesting is research shows that having those cheat days actually sabotage you. So the stance that I like to say is let's not have a cheat day. Let's just eat regular food, okay, in portions that would be conducive to whatever calories that you need. So instead of being so restrictive and saying, look, I'm never going to have, ice cream again, all right, that might not be realistic. Or if you say, okay, I'm never going to have ice cream except on my cheat day. Okay, that's not going to be realistic. Maybe it could be, all right, I'm going to have a little bit of ice cream maybe every other day, but I'm going to reduce the portion, and you're going to track your intake to make sure that that's part of your calorie intake. So there are different ways to do this. It all depends on how motivated you are and what works for you because, one diet plan isn't universal. It all has to be a little bit different. So flexibility in the diet may increase exposure to high risk situations. So what that means is if you're having days, you might just really get off track because now you're binging, and it causes cravings as well. That's what I'm noticing too with some of my patients. So, from a nutrition standpoint, what are the diet and non diet related cause of weight regain? This is what I see in practice. If you're drinking carbonation, and you want to try to lose weight, I would encourage you to stop drinking carbonation. That means carbonated diet soda and seltzer water and anything that's fizzy. And the reason why is a couple of reasons. Number one, carbonation is a CO2 gas, okay, obviously. And our body doesn't like that. We're supposed to be getting rid of CO2 gas, not ingesting it. And what the CO2 gas will do, or gas in general, is it'll actually open the sphincter. It'll open the valve that goes into your stomach and the valve that actually leaves your stomach. So in essence, you could eat more because food is actually being shuttled out quicker. So now, you're feeling hungry and you're eating more because you're drinking carbonation. Essentially, you're stretching your stomach. The other thing it does is carbonation, that CO2 gas, is very acidic. CO2 gas has to be either excreted from the body through, gas bubbles in a burp or a fart, or the body will actually convert it to carbonic acid. And carbonic acid makes that gastritis and that gastric stomach. And sometimes that's mistaken for hunger, that feeling. And then that might drive you to go and eat. So I say get rid of carbonation, just go to, non-carbonated beverages, water, preferably chamomile tea, different teas, things that might be caffeine free. I didn't put that here, but I noticed that caffeine for some people also drives hunger. The other thing is alcohol. Alcohol is not just because of calories, but the way it's metabolized in the human body. When you drink alcohol, you essentially shut down all metabolism of fat until that alcohol is totally out of your system. So that's just sabotaging you biochemically. So if, at least reduce your alcohol. If you're having two drinks, reduce it to one. I think that's going to make a big difference. Grazing and excessive snacking, we talked about that. No monitoring. If you don't self monitor and you think you know what you're doing, guess what? You don't. I'm not trying to insult anybody, but I don't know either. I think I know what I'm doing. Not really. What do I do for a living? I'm asking people, what did you eat yesterday? And you'd be surprised. People look at me cross eyed. They can't even remember what they ate the day before, let alone know how many calories they're eating. So that's why you really got to get into self monitoring. Do it any way that's comfortable for you, whether it's through apps or your PC or you write a food diary. But it's really important to do that. Not only are you looking at calories, you're looking at the percentage of macros, because that'll also help you and me and everybody that might be helping you decide, okay, you're eating the right amount of calories, but your calories are 50% fat. So maybe we need to reduce the fat a little bit. The other thing I see is we eat more carb over protein, and that's not an unlikely eating pattern just because carbohydrates are the largest food group and they're fun to eat. They just are. Between our breads and our grains and our sweets, they're just fun. They taste good. They make us feel good. So we tend to eat more carbohydrates. It doesn't mean to go on a carb free diet. That would be dangerous for you. Our brain needs it, our muscles need carbs, but we still have to control the percentage of carbohydrates we eat. At minimum, I always recommend, even for weight loss, we need to get 30 to 50 grams of carbohydrate per day. That's not a hard thing to do. I mean, think about it. If you have one orange or one serving of fruit, that's already 15 grams of carbohydrate. So carbs add up really quickly. So at minimum, do about 30 to 50 grams because that's what's needed for your brain health. And then you have to move around your carbs based on your activity. So if you know you're going to be, fairly active with an aerobic activity like tennis or golf or swimming, then you might want to have a nice carb breakfast so it'll supply you the energy to get through your activity without your body actually storing it for fat. Or if you're more into bodybuilding, you need a little bit of carbohydrate and protein even after your workout to replenish those muscles. So that's what you do with carbs. You kind of play around with carbs according to your activity. Now, some of you might be saying, okay, well, I don't do too much activity. Okay, well, that means that you need to take still a look at your carbohydrate and try to keep the intake of your carb mostly during the day when you may be more active, even if it's daily activity, rather than, okay, I'm just about ready to go to bed, but I'm going to have a big, huge bowl of ice cream. That's not going to make sense for your diet. The other thing I want you to take a look at, and certainly when you talk to your primary care physicians, again, vitamin and mineral deficiencies. Those can lead to weight gain. And there is a relationship between vitamins and your metabolism, and vitamins and how hormones work, and vitamins and how you breathe. So, vitamins are really, really important. So, it doesn't mean that you have to go out and buy a multivitamin, but it just means you should probably get some of your vitamins tested and your minerals like iron, B12, B1, certain vitamins. Doesn't have to be all of them. And according to the American Medical Association, they actually made this announcement a few years ago that they believe that every single American should be on a daily multivitamin because they feel that even if you do eat a variety of foods, the quality of food might not be 100%. The farming techniques might not be all that great. So, are we really getting what we need? I would just say use caution with that, especially if you're on prescription medication, just because remember, vitamins and minerals could be contraindicated with your medications. So, before you start any vitamin or mineral, talk to your pharmacist and your doctor. Large portion sizes, we've got portion distortion. I used to give a presentation where I would compare the portion from the 1980s, even the 1980s till now. I mean, a good example of this would be, I don't know if, I'm from New York, so I don't know if you're familiar with Lender's bagels. Lender's bagels, I think they're in the frozen section now. Lender's bagels are tiny. They're like 2-ounce bagels. They're really small. That's actually the serving size of a bagel. But you go to Einstein's or you go to Costco and you buy a bagel, it's like 5 times that. So, our portion sizes are just getting bigger and bigger, even if we don't mean to eat that. The food industry has increased our portion sizes. Even a slice of bread. A slice of bread should be 1 ounce. Ugh, I dare you, go try to find a slice of bread that's 1 ounce. It's always 1.2 or 1.5. So it's already, the food industry is already giving you a larger portion. Poor food quality and choices, we still have some issues with food insecurity, even in the United States. So, if people can't afford good quality food, they might be going to fast foods because that's what they can afford. Or maybe we think that it's a good food. I'll give you an example. A lot of my clients are on gluten-free diets. They could be helpful, but they could not be helpful too. Some of these gluten-free diets are filled with a whole bunch of junk. So you really have to read your food labels and really know what kinds of foods you're eating. None or little exercise. I mean, I know we might have some stressors that prevent us from doing some exercise. So you need to do whatever you can do, get assistance through the fitness center, whatever you can do, even at home. A lot of us work a lot or we've got a lot of other stressors, but we have to figure out what can we do, to help keep those muscles strong. Stress, let me tell you, stress will secrete stress hormones, and the stress hormones will change that biochemistry for us to hold on to fat. That's what those stress hormones do because the body doesn't interpret stress, like it can't differentiate between, oh, that's stress because you're worried about something, or that's stress because you have to run away from Tyrannosaurus Rex that's going to eat you. So the same reaction is going to happen. You're going to secrete stress hormones, and the same chemical reaction is going to happen. You're going to store fat. Psychosocial issues, I do have some clients and some patients that actually have eating disorders, or disordered eating. I mean, I'm a dietitian and I've been diagnosed with disordered eating. So that's something that's always, something in the back of my mind that I get help for. Financial stress, definitely during this time, some people are losing their jobs and furloughed, and we're losing money on our stock market. So financial stress doesn't help. Poor sleeping habits. There is a definite correlation between poor sleeping and weight gain. And a lot of that is because of hormones. So you have to think about, oh man, I can't sleep. What can I do to sleep better? Medical issues, of course, and certain medications that we talked about a couple weeks ago. So, there are lots of things that contribute to weight regain. Now, this is just a really cool study. It's actually an ongoing study. You can always access the website. It's called the National Weight Control Registry, and it was established in 1994 by 2 professors. And it's actually a prospective research where people can still contribute to it. And what they're looking for is, what are the characteristics of long-term successful weight loss maintenance? And so far, this is what they found. It was pretty interesting. They found that participants reported that they modified their food intake in some way. So maybe they reduced their portion, maybe they're eating more vegetables. So they modified food, they focused on food. Um, Most report continuing on some sort of low calorie diet, low fat diet, and doing high levels of physical activity. 78% of the respondents actually said they eat breakfast every day. So that's very controversial. We used to say, eat breakfast, it breaks the fast. It helps rev up your metabolism. And then this whole intermittent fasting thing came out and people threw that out the window. So it's still kind of controversial. 75% of the respondents said that they weigh themselves at least once a week, and that's part of self monitoring. So I think that's a good habit. 62% watch less than 10 hours of TV per week. I thought that was interesting. Marketing knows that you're watching TV when you're watching it. So that's why all those yummy commercials are coming on while you're watching TV. 94% increase their physical activity, with the most frequently reported form of activity being walking. So it's not like you have to, use these heavy machines or do a bunch of stuff, but if you can be walking even around your house, we can't minimize that. 90% exercise on the average about 1 hour per day. And remember, you can break that up. It doesn't mean you have to do 1 hour of continuous activity. Break it up into 15 minutes or 10 minutes. And then by the end of the day, you got your hour. And then 45% of the participants lost their weight on their own, and the other 55% lost weight with some help, being part of a program, a weight loss program. So this is just the summary. They engage in levels of physical activity. They eat a diet that's low in calories and fat. They eat breakfast. They self-monitor. They maintain a consistent eating pattern. They catch those slips before they turn into larger gains. In other words, if they get on the scale and they're self-monitoring, they see, oh shoot, I just gained 1 or 2 pounds. They're going to rein that in right away. They're not just going to say, all right, I'll wait till next week. Well, by next week, it could be 5 pounds. And then they initiate weight loss after a medical event. This is interesting too. Research showed that a lot of people, even though they know they need to lose weight, they won't until something very dramatic happens, unfortunately. And then sometimes by that time, you're already behind the 8 ball. So this is what I put this together because I think these are also characteristics of long-term success. Of course, the physical activity. I think cooking smart, and even if you don't cook, just choosing foods that are properly prepared. We do know that fried foods are going to be higher in calories and they're not as healthy for us. Doesn't mean you can never have a piece of bacon, right? But if you're eating bacon every single day, maybe you need to make a substitution. Plan and shop smart. Even if you don't cook, you probably have some things in the house, right? You might have some beverages or you might have cereals or things that are easily prepared. So you have to pick things that are higher in fiber, lower in calories. It's all about reading the food labels. I think eating mechanics are really important too. The way we eat and drink, if we're fast eaters, you're going to eat more. You are. And that's because the brain is slow. It has to register fullness by the stretch receptors in our stomach. And that takes about 20 to 30 minutes. So if you eat slow, you're actually going to eat less. Avoid or limit alcohol. We talked about that. Breakfast. We talked about that. Try not to skip meals. I know if some of you might be on that intermittent fasting plan, and if that's what your plan is, then you're following that plan. But I recommend that if you're not following that plan, try to keep even with your meals. Your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Even if the times aren't exactly the same. Maybe on the weekend you sleep a little bit later. Just when you get up within that hour, try to eat breakfast. Portion control and calorie control, that's we talked about that last week about having to weigh out your food or using smaller containers, things like that. Get support. I think support is 90% of the battle. So whoever that support system is for you, whether it's your doctor or your nutritionist, your fitness center, your friends, your family, competition is always fun. Maybe you've got a group of friends that want to compete. That's always fun. Self-monitoring, of course. Drink adequate non-calorie fluids. I think I gave that example last time where I had a client that actually drank 700 calories. Try to have the bulk of your calories from food, not from drinking. Doesn't mean you can't have a latte, but if you're going to do a latte 7 times a day, that's going to start to add up. So we need to modify that a little bit. And we need to eat all of the macros, carbs, fats, and proteins. You can't go on a zero carb diet or a zero fat diet. It's not realistic. You won't be able to stay on that, nor is it healthy long term. We just have to look at the macros and make sure we're not overdoing one over the other. So weight loss plateaus, so you say you've been following your nutritional guidelines faithfully and even exercising, but your weight is still the same. Did you hit a plateau? Well, the answer is yes, but try not to panic. What exactly is a weight loss plateau? Well, if you're losing weight and then all of a sudden in a week you haven't lost anything, okay, that's really not a plateau. That just means the body's kind of readjusting a little bit. But now if you're entering like the end of the second week, that's most likely a plateau. You're stuck on that plateau, even though you're basically doing the same thing. So, what do you do about it? Well, the first thing is try not to get demotivated. And I know it's hard because we want to see the results, especially when we feel that we're sacrificing, right? We're not eating that ice cream every day. But if you revert back to some of your old eating choices or eating habits, well, that's not going to help you. Then you're going to gain weight. So you're going to change that plateau into a weight regain, okay? So let's just explain it. So the weight loss plateau may be normal. It just may be the body needs a rest. It has to cope with the fact that you've made a lot of changes. Remember that our body is biochemistry. It takes a little time sometimes for it to realize what you're telling it. So it has to downregulate enzymes and hormones, and it's got to change metabolism. It can't just do that on a dime. It takes a little time. And remember, it is about calories in, calories out, just in terms of balance. So, the other thing that you have to think about is as you lose weight, you change your biochemistry, you probably need to eat less, okay, which is really frustrating. So, you're losing weight, just say you lost 50 pounds. Well, that means that you're not going to need as many calories as you did when you were 50 pounds heavier. So, you always have to constantly reevaluate your calories. So, that's why if just say you're following a 1200 calorie diet and you're losing weight and then you plateau and you're still following a 1200 calorie diet. Well, that means the 1200 calorie diet is not working for you anymore. So we have to take a look at the 1200 calorie diet. And it's annoying because you're thinking, oh my gosh, I hardly eat anything on a 1200 calorie diet. Now you're putting me on an 1100 calorie diet. Well, maybe not necessarily. Maybe I can put you on a 1150 calorie diet and you just do a little bit more exercise to kind of take you over that calorie edge. So this is what this is saying. As you lose weight, your calorie needs actually decrease. The other thing I see is that sometimes we lower calories too much. I have a client that I'm working with actually, and she just can't lose weight. She's frustrated. But this is her menu. Okay. So for breakfast, she eats two tangerines. For lunch, she eats two tangerines. And for dinner, she makes like a small little, maybe 4 ounces of fish and some vegetables. So she's eating probably about 450 to 500 calories. Okay, your body's going to preserve. It's thinking, okay, you're not giving me enough calories. I better hold on. And what the body will do is adapt, and it'll take the very small calorie that she's eating and make it into fat because the body's like, look, you're not giving me enough. I better store it. Okay, so that's why I'm trying to get her to eat a little bit more. Even we're going to start slow. My suggestion was just having a protein shake for breakfast. So she's actually going to increase her calories by 200 calories for breakfast. And then for lunch, she's going to still have her two tangerines because she enjoys those. Okay. I'm going to convince her to have a little bit of a salad, hopefully with a little bit of protein on that. And then she's going to continue with her dinner. So by the end of the day, she's actually going to increase her calories from about 500 to about 1100 calories. And then we're going to see if that helps her break her plateau. And we got a lot of this information by something called the Minnesota starvation experiment, which was an experiment that it was a human experiment that could never be done now because of ethics. But basically, what the scientists did was he took healthy men. This was during the war, actually, World War II, I believe, and he kept them on their calories, their regular calories that they needed for, I believe, 3 months, and then he cut their calories in half and kept them on that kind of a diet for another 3 to 4 months just to see, well, what would happen. And it was amazing. The results were amazing because obviously these people lost a lot of weight. They lost a lot of muscle mass. They became almost psychotic in the sense they became very obsessive with food. And then the last 3 to 4 months, they put them back on a higher calorie diet. And what happened was when they regained weight, they regained fat. They actually regained 10% more body fat than they had going into the experiment. So, again, it just shows that it's called metabolic adaptation. It just means that the body is really going to adapt to what we do to it. So, the good thing was because these they were young guys, they were actually able to finally get back to their normal body weight and their normal body fat, but it actually took quite a long time. So my point in saying all this is you can't lower your calories too much. You can. Number one, it's not realistic again. You're going to start to miss things and then you might binge eat. So it doesn't work. The other thing is if you keep your calories too low and you lose your lean body mass, well, your lean body mass is really what also dictates your metabolic profile. So if you're losing body mass, your metabolism is going to dip. Muscle does burn more fat, so losing muscle means you're going to burn fewer calories. So even if you're at home, if you can do some light weights or some resistant exercises to build some of that muscle mass, that's really going to surge some of your metabolism. The other thing too is exercise efficiency, and this is also pretty frustrating too. If you're doing the same exercise over and over and over again, your body already knows what you're doing. It's not going to change. And I'm a perfect example. I used to cycle like 100 miles a day. I didn't lose 1 pound. And that's because I was already efficient at doing that same exercise. My biochemistry adapted. So I wasn't losing any weight. It was only until I actually changed my calories and changed some of my activity. So that's why they're saying try to do a little bit of everything. If you're getting on the treadmill, whatever you physically can do, change it up. Just trick your body, try to say, aha, you thought I was going to do this today. Well, I'm doing this instead. And it's really cool because when you do different activities, your body actually creates different organelles. One of the organelles is called the mitochondria, and the mitochondria is actually what helps you to burn energy. And your muscles actually will create more mitochondria. It's the coolest thing. So try to do different things. And this is just an example of how that works. So this person, as you lose weight, the calories burned during exercises also decrease. Oh, I forgot to say that. So that makes sense too. So if you're carrying a larger weight and you're exercising, you're actually going to burn more calories than when you lost weight. So this was actually a true patient of ours. So this patient, Marie, she weighed 300 pounds at the time. She was able to walk 2 miles per hour at 45 minutes and she burned 272 calories. But when she lost 110 pounds, she only burned 172 calories. So that makes sense. Okay, also enhance physical condition. This goes with that exercise efficiency. When you're getting healthy, your heart is getting healthier, your muscles are getting healthier. It actually preserves your metabolic rate. It's all about adaptation, because we're descendant, you have to preserve your life. So your organs are always trying to down regulate and preserve. And that makes sense. I mean, think about it. If you had like some endurance athlete or some, Olympic star, their body is so conditioned, they're actually going to use less calories doing an exercise than say you would. That's how efficient they are. The other thing is try not to overtrain, just like not eating enough. That overtraining can lower the amount of calories you burn. When you exercise too much, there is a point of diminishing returns. So that's the other thing. So if you do like to exercise and this is part of your lifestyle, always give yourself a chance to rest as well. You need to have a rest day in there just so you can replenish your muscles, replenish biochemistry. The other thing is just remember resuming our old eating behaviors is so easy to do. It's so much easier to go back to what's familiar to us, than to actually change the behavior. And, at one time we thought, yeah, it takes about 30 days to change a behavior. No, actually, the research shows it takes 60 to 90 days, and even that's a struggle. And, it's not about intellect. You all know how to eat, to read food labels, you shouldn't be eating fried foods every day, but it's the motivation to keep going. Or, man, now I got to change my behavior. I really enjoyed my ice cream at 8 o'clock at night when I was watching TV. Now you got to change that or at least modify it. So if you're on a plateau, you may have lost all of the weight you will, given the number of calories you're eating each day and the time you spend exercising. So at this point, you need to ask yourself if you're satisfied with your current weight or if you really need to lose more. So you do have to reevaluate as well. So that weight loss plateau is also telling you, do I need to reevaluate? Maybe I really am at a healthy weight. And remember, when you take your weight, that includes your body composition. Don't just go by the scale. If you think, oh, I need to lose 50 more pounds, and this happens to me a lot. I have clients that'll say, look, I want to lose more weight. And I'm fighting with them. I'm like, if you lose more weight, you're going to dip into muscle mass and become unhealthy. So you almost have to say to you, why do you want to lose more weight? Is there something deeper going on here? Especially if I'm showing you that your body fat percentage is perfect. Unless you want to be, an elite athlete or a bodybuilder, I mean, we can go there and discuss that. But if you just randomly say, I want to lose 50 more pounds because you think 110 looks better on the scale than 160, well, you got to reevaluate that. So, all right. So, how do you recognize change? How has your diet changed since first starting your weight loss journey? Well, I can tell you that what changes in a lot of my clients and patients is that they start to increase their diet. So instead of decreasing and modifying, they reach their goal and then they start to eat more. It's almost like they're giving themselves permission to say, oh, okay, let me eat more. So you just have to be really conscious of that. How have my calorie needs changed? Well, somebody probably has to recalculate your calories. A nutritionist. And again, I know we talked about that whole metabolic testing. Ugh, if we could finally eventually do that again, that would be ideal. And then also think about your exercise. Has that routine changed or not? This is just that calculation that I showed you a couple weeks how you can actually calculate your own. And there is a calculation both for men and women, and it is based on height, your age, and your weight. So this is one of the most accurate equations. It's not 100% accurate because it's a mathematical equation, but periodically, especially when you lose weight, you have to recalculate it because it'll give you a good idea on how many calories actually your base would be. Definitely keep a detailed food diary. I know I keep going on and on and on about that, but if you don't, how do you really know what to change? So try to do it in a way that's easy for you. Even maybe if you don't do it every day, you start out by every other day. That would be good. I remember I used to work with a partner that I don't know, it must have been like every day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, she would write something on her wrist in pen. She'd write, I'm like, Gina, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I'm writing how many calories I have left to eat for dinner. So she was so calorie conscious and food conscious that she knew, okay, I only got 300 calories to eat for dinner. And then she would meal plan to make sure she didn't go over that. Now, I understand that's a bit extreme, but if you saw this lady, she is very fit and she has kept her weight off and she continues to keep her weight off because she's very involved in her care. It's so easy to take in the calories, definitely. So let me just give you an example. Just say you need to follow a 1,200 calorie diet and you're like, all right, well, I'm just going to have an apple. Come on, an apple is healthy. Well, guess what? That apple could be 100 calories, 1,200 calories anymore. You're doing 1,300 calories. You're having a little extra portion of mashed potatoes. You're having grapes. You're having some milk. So some of these foods are very healthy, but they're adding cups of air popcorn. Okay, only 100 calories, not bad. So it doesn't mean not have these. It just means fit them in. So if you know, hey, I'm going to have extra mashed potato today because I really like that, that means go a little bit lighter for the previous meal, or maybe you have to skip a snack. All right. So it's give and take. I don't know what this is. I know. Sorry. This picture looks disgusting. Sorry about that. But also try not to under or overestimate your calories, especially from those hidden calories. So that's why documenting is important. So, whatever you put in your mouth, you need to document because you'd be surprised how much gum will add up by the end of the day. I have a client, I'm serious. She didn't have sugar-free gum. She liked bubble gum. And by the end of the day, she was up to 100 calories in gum. I mean, it almost sounds ridiculous, but when you've got to shave off the calories, I'd rather her have an apple instead of the gum. Same thing with salad dressings and sauces. And that might be hard to calculate, especially if you're going out to eat. So the best thing to do perhaps is if you know you're going out to eat and you're having something that might have a sauce, maybe have it on the side. Have the sauce on the side. Or if you're saying to me, okay, Lil, you're crazy because I want to have spaghetti or I want to have lasagna. Okay, still have to calculate lasagna, put that in your food diary and put lasagna. And if you do some of these apps, it'll give you the calorie count for lasagna. So you don't have to put it in separately. I always try to encourage my clients and patients to always eat protein first. And the reason for that is protein is a very metabolic macronutrient and it makes you full because it takes longer to digest. And there's an example that I give to my med school students. It's kind of elementary, but it really hones in on the point. So I'll have half my class chew a bunch of crackers, but not swallow them. So just chew the cracker. And the other side of the class, I'll give them a piece of cheese and I'll say, okay, chew the cheese, but don't swallow it. Okay. So I wait and I time maybe about 7 to 10 minutes until the class is like nauseated, right? The people with the crackers, they're like, okay, the cracker's gone. It already digested. It actually tasted sweet. And that makes sense because digestion of carbohydrates begins in the mouth. So by the time it gets to your stomach, it's gone. The stomach doesn't really have to work to digest it. So you don't really feel full. And yet the other side of the class that had the cheese, they're all like getting nauseous because they're like, oh my gosh, this cheese, it's still there. It's disgusting. It's melted, but it's not digested. Yes, that's the point. The point is protein will not digest in your mouth. The protein will digest in your stomach. It actually begins digestion there. So the point of that experiment is when you eat protein, it's denser. It takes longer to digest. It might help you to feel fuller. So you're not eating as much. So lean proteins, of course. And also the protein helps to preserve that lean body mass, especially when you're losing weight. Because that's the other thing. When you're losing weight, you can't just say to your body, okay, just lose fat. No, it's going to lose fat and some muscle, unfortunately. As a matter of fact, the body would rather lose muscle than fat because again, we're very adaptive creatures. It wants to hold on to the fat just in case. So that's why eating that protein will keep that lean body mass on. This is just from a couple weeks ago, just a reminder to use some of these food tracker apps. They're so easy to use now. That's why I love them. Like the MyFitnessPal. It's almost fun it's fun now. I think it's fun because now I can really realize what I'm doing. This is another one that's fun, Tastic food tracker. But I think MyFitness probably the most logical one. It's free. There's also a component that you pay, but you don't need that. So do the free stuff. And what I like about it too, it's a community. So you can see what other people are doing. You can get support that way. You can get recipes. You get nutrition articles. It's just a lot of fun. And there are a whole bunch of other ones that are out there. You got to read your nutrition labels. That's the other thing too. So you might be thinking, okay, Lil, I'm reading food labels, but what do I look at? What do I look for? Well, it depends again what your goals are. If you know that you're eating too much fat, then maybe you should start honing in on the fat on that label. I'll give you an example. I have a client that sent me an email today and she's like, look, Lil, I want to start protein shakes. I'm like, okay, cool, great. She sent me the food label of this protein shake that was a keto shake and it had 22 grams of fat in 8 ounces. I almost fell over. I'm like, no, that's way, way too much fat. And of course, it's going to be a high fat product because it's part of a keto diet, but I want her to decrease her fat. So I said, you know what? I don't really recommend that one. Try a different one. Try to look for something that has no more than 10 grams of fat. So I gave her some suggestions, and that's what she's going to do. So try to read the food labels. You're going to look at calories. You're going to look at fiber. Because remember, fiber doesn't really digest, so it doesn't add to calories. So if you're getting cereal, you're getting bread, you're getting grains, try to get whole grains and complex carbohydrates because they'll be higher in fiber. That's what that whole net carb thing is all about. So the higher the fiber, the better because it drives down the calories. And then, of course, if you're looking for like cholesterol or sodium, it depends also what you're including in your diet. Okay. Again, if your calorie intake is too low, you got to aim for adequate calorie intake. Increase your calorie intake with nutritious foods. So it doesn't mean, okay, I've got 200 calories left, let me eat 5 Twinkies. Okay, no. So try to eat healthful foods. But on the flip side of that, even though I was sarcastic with that, if I know I have 200 calories left, and I have a birthday party to go to, well, maybe I'll reserve that 200 calories because I really do want a piece of birthday cake. And I think that could be okay too, because now you're incorporating it into a lifestyle. You're not being so restrictive. So maybe you could have a Twinkie. Also, keep an exercise log as well. I know you might be thinking, oh my gosh, all these logs. I'm logging. But again, I think it really helps and it helps you to record your calories, what you burned. Use the exercise apps. They're just much easier to use. Or if you like to write things down, and it's just fun to do because you can look back and say, oh man, I couldn't even do this last month and now I can do it. So my advice is don't allow cheat days. You can, however, allow a variety of foods that fit your calorie needs. Just make sure you adjust your calories and just continue to keep on track. And I think this is really important. I know, Thanksgiving is coming. You might be eating foods that you don't typically eat. I want you to enjoy yourself. Eat them. Just try not to overindulge. Maybe don't have 5 servings of the pumpkin pie. Maybe have a smaller serving, or fill up a little bit more on the turkey, or maybe put on some music and start dancing around your house to burn some calories. But it doesn't mean not enjoy yourself. Definitely enjoy yourself. Eat slowly, stay on routine. That's the other thing. Try to establish some sort of eating pattern, especially around the holiday. Eating mechanics, eating slow, I'm telling you, that really does help. And the eating pattern, one size doesn't fit all on this one either. When you read the research, though, the research is saying 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We really don't need a lot of these snacks. And that was really the premise behind the intermittent fasting, that you eat within a certain amount of time and then you stop eating. You give your body a break from food intake, because it actually takes, several hours to digest food. And then you had another school of thought said, no, 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 you need to be eating several small meals a day because of all the insulin thing. You know what? I say try one eating pattern, and if that doesn't work, we'll try another eating pattern, because one size does not fit all. I have clients that tried intermittent fasting and totally couldn't lose 1 pound. And then I have clients that will eat 5 small meals a day, and that totally works for them. Then I have other clients that eat 3 meals a day. They're very strict on that: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, no snacks. And that works for them. So we just have to see what works in your lifestyle. Just be aware of something called disordered eating or emotional eating. A lot of us eat for a lot of reasons. We're not just eating because we're hungry. We're eating because we're bored. We're eating because we're emotional. We're eating because, it smells good. So if you feel that it's going beyond something that you can control, there is nothing wrong with seeking help from psychology or a mental health counselor to help you get past or help you with different strategies. Okay. The other thing that I like is something called the mindful eating cycle. And this was actually created by a dietitian. And it's all about kind of self talking when you're about to go and eat. Why are you eating? Is it because you're hungry, or is it because you're emotional? When are you eating? Are you a nighttime eater? Or do you get up in the middle of the night and eat? I have some patients and clients that do that. It's called noctophagia. They're really not hungry, but they get up at night. Some of them have to get up to take medication, and now they're like, well, I might as well eat something because I need to have something in my stomach. What are you actually eating? Are you eating the Twinkies? Well, maybe you can, but hopefully 90% of your diet is more healthful than Twinkies. How are you eating? Again, are you taking 10 minutes to eat because you're scarfing it down? I got to tell you, I'm a very fast eater. And that's really bad, because once I eat fast, I start to binge. So I notice that when I'm eating too fast, I tend to binge. And that's one of my disordered eating issues. How much you eating? Well, if you're binging, you're eating a lot of calories in a very small amount of time because you're binging, you're eating too fast. So slow it down. And where are you eating? A lot of my psychology friends say, you know what? Don't eat in front of the TV. You're not supposed to be doing that. You're supposed to be at a table. You're supposed to be sitting down at a table without a computer, without a book, without, a TV, and eat that way. And then I have other clients of mine saying, all right, I'm not listening to that psychologist because that's crazy. Eating is social. So again, you have to see what works for you. I do believe that eating is a social thing. Definitely. This is how we talk and have great conversation. So I wouldn't want to take that away from somebody. You just still have to be conscious of what you're eating and how much you're eating and how fast you're eating, etc. So maybe just try this mindful eating cycle. When you're ready to go get something, just kind of think, are you hungry or you're not hungry? If you're hungry, well, then maybe you need to eat something. So just kind of go through the cycle in your head: the why, when, what, how much, and where. So really the summary of this whole lecturing is, long-term weight loss does require self-monitoring and adjusting and changing. So you're adjusting your goals, you're adjusting your nutritional intake, you're adjusting your exercise. Intrinsic motivation, that's really the key to long-term success. So only you can tell you what motivates you. And, sometimes it's, competition. Sometimes it's, being able to get insurance. I have a patient that he can't get life insurance because of his weight. So that's a big motivator for him. Whatever motivates you, that is going to keep you on track. And I really think support is really important. If you try to do this by yourself, it's really difficult. I mean, just say you're trying to diet and your significant other is, like, well, just because you don't eat ice cream doesn't mean I can't eat ice cream. Well, that is very true. So maybe you can kind of talk about it and come to a discussion about it. See how that other person can actually support you with your goals. Doesn't mean inflict your goals on them. You just have to have that conversation. And I would say just enjoy it, because remember, we never get that day back ever. So enjoy the day, seize the day. It's not perfection. If you need to change something, you change something. All right, so that conclusion of my series. All right, so I feel like I'm always talking to myself. I hope that was okay. Thank you for the yay. All right, so what questions do you have? Comments, questions? Are you motivated? Are you going to start something?
How do you spell nactophagia?
Oh, noctophagia. So it's N-O.
Oh man, oh, yeah.
Yep. C-T.
Oh God. Yeah.
And then the letter O, and then phagia. P-H-A-G-I-A. Noctophagia.
I'm living with somebody's got it. Yes.
Yeah, it's called nighttime eating, and it's also linked to psychology as well. A lot of my psychologists tell me, that's a very stressful time, nighttime. It could also be driven by hormones. A lot of my patients, they're on medications, they can't sleep. So now they're up and, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, they're on the computer, they're on TV, they're reading books, they can't sleep. So what are they doing? They're eating and they're sabotaging themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I got a question.
Sure.
Okay, I actually, through my work, I take these courses. I get reduction of my premiums, but they always talking about, they give recipes and they're talking about calories and they're teaching me about macronutrients and micronutrients and all that.
Yeah.
What you're talking about, which I believe in, trying to get to a number of calories per day.
Yeah.
I'm finding that even when I eat, I'm always feeling hungry. Now I'm able to stop the urge, but once I start eating, let's say at lunch,
Yeah.
I still want to maybe have a snack within a half an hour of it. Then I can go 3 hours, but I'm going to feel hungry again. And I don't know what's causing me always feeling hungry.
Right. Okay. It's a really great question. Okay. So it could be physiological. So let's go through the physiological causes of hunger. You could be thirsty. So that's the first thing I want you to address is your thirst.
Yeah, I probably need to drink more, but I try. But
keep drinking. Just because dehydration, especially after you eat, is actually going to signal hunger, because the body can't signal a different feeling for dehydration. So it's going to feel the same as hunger. So that's the first thing.
Okay, that makes sense, because I'm probably only having 3 glasses in total of everything during a day.
Right. Right. So try that first. The second thing, consider what you're eating. Are you eating, calorie dense food, like nutrition dense food, I should say. So are you having fiber? Are you having complex carbohydrates? Are you having lean proteins? Things that digest slowly. If you're having something simple like, a sandwich on white bread, that's going to digest really quick. Your body is still hungry. Okay, because of the digestion process going too fast. So add more fiber. That's what I would recommend. That's another thing. And then the third thing is, well, there's 2 more. The third thing is the more carbs you eat, the hungrier you may be, because hunger is triggered by carbs in the brain, not just the stomach. Okay, so that's why, again, you can eat carbs, but make sure that it's a complex carb, because hopefully the urge will be less. And then last but not least, there are so many hormones that drive hunger. Now, I'm not a big pill pusher, I'm really not. But if it gets to the point where it's just really sabotaging your health, you might want to talk to your primary care physician about appetite suppressants. That's always the last resort, because there's always side effects to those
You
things.
showed a lot of side effects.
Yeah.
Well, I am a stress eater, though. There's no question about it. I do taxes, and I'm always stressed, and I think that's my biggest cause. I don't want to make this about me, but that may be, I was more interested why I'm always feeling hungry.
Yeah, that's why. And you know, stress is going to secrete cortisol, which is going to make you hungry. So I think there's a hormonal thing. So control what you can control, meaning drink more, eat more nutrient dense food, maybe come up with some stress management, you know, do some meditation, have a stress ball,
I got a
you
bunch
know.
of that. Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
doing.
and that'll help too. Yep.
Okay.
But thank you for the question.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
my
Thank you.
pleasure. All right, you guys, if there's no other questions, hey, I had so much fun these past couple of weeks. Thank you so much again for inviting me into your home. I hope you have a really great Thanksgiving. Be safe, have fun, you know, modify, dance around the house. And then I think our next lecture, I guess, is in December. Yeah.
Okay, good.
All right,
Thanks,
you guys.
Lillian.
Do you know
Thank
what
you so
day
much.
do
Thank
you know
you,
what
thank
day,
you.
do you know
Yeah.
what day in December it is?
The
Jamie knows.
17th, right? I believe it's the 17th.
17th.
We'll send out info the week prior and then reminders, but if memory serves me, it is the 17th.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And
Sounds
everybody,
good.
Funny thing, I can't pull that word up. I'm getting the act of eating corpses.
The act of eating corpses.
It doesn't
Oh
want to give
my
me that
God.
word.
Then just type in night eating syndrome.
Okay, all right.
All right, you guys, that was awesome.
Thank
take
All
care.
right,
Have a great weekend.
I'll see you guys soon.
All right, bye-bye.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Wonderful.